and welcome to Kick Conflict to the Curb, the place where leaders and growth minded individuals come to gain wisdom from some of the world's best experts in conflict resolution. I'm your host, Joyce Weiss, communication coach and facilitator. And I work with leaders who want to create a culture where individuals feel heard and not silenced, encouraging communication that's direct yet respectful, which drives engagement, encouragement, and retention. Well, I have a question, actually, two questions for you. Do you want to end workplace misery or drama in your home? Are you curious how to avoid trouble before it starts? Well, I know I am, and I can't wait to learn from our guest today, who feels passionate about ending misery in the workplace. Well, I met Dave Kippen years ago at the Michigan Lean Consortium. And that's when I knew immediately that I had to invite him to be a guest on this show because Dave has a sense of humor that never quits and a unique perspective on life. I'd like to introduce you to Dave Kippen. Dave Kippen is a performance excellence practitioner with ADM. He is heavily focused on the behaviors and mental models of folks involved in leadership and continuous improvement. Dave's ultimate goal is to end workplace suffering, and he's passionate about people who experience misery in their daily jobs. Here's a fun fact about Dave. He's also a professional brewer. Welcome to the show, Dave Kippen. This is going to be a good one.
I crack up at that intro, Joyce. That's so kind. And when you said world's best experts, I thought maybe I was going to get the hook and somebody else was going to show up today.
Well, I'm a truth teller, Dave, and world could be Michigan. I know you travel all over, so I appreciate your humility.
That's fun. Good.
So I am so intrigued by this topic. No one ever came up with this idea. And I always ask my guests when we, meet in the blue and red room, what topic? And so you came up with this topic. So avoiding trouble before it starts. Tell us the backstory, please, and why you chose this intriguing topic, sir.
You're the foremost expert on all this stuff, and I thought, boy, what do I know about conflict and avoiding conflict or resolving conflict? And as I reflected on your question, I thought, boy, over the years I've tried harder and harder to not get into conflict in the first place, and so it's not trying to figure out how to dig myself out of the hole after the fact. It's how to not dig that hole in the beginning. And I think I've done some things over the years. I've learned some things. I mean, everything we'll talk about today is certainly not a Dave Kippen exclusive, but I've learned some tools over the years that have really helped, I think, avoid getting myself in that ditch in the first place. And so that's why I pitched it.
Well, I'm so glad because so many people, if they read it, and viewers, you may be one of them, when you said avoiding trouble before it starts, there are so many people who are conflict adverse. So they may be watching right now and say, oh, good, Joyce and Dave aren't going to tell me what to do. I could just sit back and be silent. No, that's not what we're going to be doing today. And I can't wait. So you said lessons learned. As a young Dave, you experienced, so I learned, a lot of conflict. What past behavior was your comfort zone before we get into the lessons?
Yeah, I think it's behaviors and mindsets. I think maybe that got me that got young Dave into trouble. I started my career in skilled trades. So I originally went to school for graphic design. I never ended up being the next great designer, but I got into printing as a skilled tradesman, and I kind of worked my way up through a couple of different businesses until I found my way to the leadership team, and eventually into a continuous improvement role. Along the way, I learned a lot of things. I think naturally, I just like to learn and pick up new skills, and I really gravitated toward the lean manufacturing and continuous improvement skill set. And so as I did that, I really did start to see the world different, see the business different. And as I learned new tools on how to solve problems and how to make things better, maybe I got a little full of myself and saw the way, saw the right way, or what I thought was the right way, and pursued it independently, maybe without bringing other people along, which tends to cause conflict.
Oh my God. So that is a good lesson for all of us, especially the leaders, that you may think you have all the answers. And maybe you do in certain respects, like Dave, the young Dave did, and Joyce, the younger Joyce did. And then the lesson comes when all of a sudden you find out that people on your team, and I know you deal a lot with employees to make sure they feel heard. They're the ones, when you let them talk, and I'm saying let them talk, they know and they have better answers than you do. Agree,
Yeah.
or do you want to push back?
No, I totally agree. And I think a lot of it is about perspective and the picture, the mental model you have in your mind versus what everybody else is thinking. So we'll play a little game, Joyce, if you don't mind.
I love games as long as it's not math.
It is not math. And you and I are on the same page with that one.
Creative people. Okay. Yes. Yes, sir.
I learned this at actually the Michigan Lean Consortium conference. The keynote speaker ran us through this activity on the morning of the first day, and it was fantastic. So the task is simple, Joyce. I want you to picture in your mind a penguin.
Okay.
Do you have a mental image of a penguin?
I do.
Okay. Pretty easy task, you think?
Yeah, we're done. Next question.
Yeah. Do you think everybody would be able to put that picture of a penguin in their head?
I'm not sure, just because you and I both see the world differently, but let's say the younger Joyce for sure would. The younger
Nice.
Joyce, everybody sees. Can I share my penguin or not yet?
So let's move into that. So you picture us in this conference, hundreds of people sitting in the ballroom, and the speaker asks, "Hey, everybody picture a penguin." We're thinking, "What the heck? Of course we can all picture a penguin." Then he of course, he knew where he was going before he even asked the question. He said, "Think about the picture in your head and raise your hand if the penguin you pictured was of the National Geographic kind of realistic, looking penguin standing on the snow or the ice." And so you're raising your hand, but then you look around and only half the room is raising their hand.
Ooh.
And I thought, what in the world? Where's he going? He said, "Who pictured a cartoon penguin?" And just about the other half of the room raised their hand, and I was flabbergasted. The thought that somebody would picture a cartoon penguin versus the National Geographic penguin baffled me, because I was like you, I raised my hand with the National Geographic penguin. And so that was really eye-opening to the group. The fact that something so simple, seemingly not very nuanced at all, we were split 50-50. And David McCraney, the keynote speaker, said this is very typical when he runs this activity. It's usually 50-50. Half the people see a real penguin, half the people see a cartoon penguin. Every now and then there's a third category where somebody pictures their kid's stuffed animal, their little stuffed penguin. So there's even a few more options out there. So Joyce, if we can't even all come up with the same mental image of a simple penguin, how in the heck are we going to align on important things in life or in business? How do we all see that same penguin before we start doing anything, before we start having discussions or talking about problem solving or solutions or anything? And so that really, that really changed my view on, why aren't we aligned? Why do I see things so clearly and other people don't? It's our life circumstance. It's what we've learned in life, the path we've taken, and that really does shape up how we see the world.
And what you just did is you described how I see when we really have humility, we realize that everyone doesn't see the penguin the same. We realize that I know what I mean. My team knows what I mean because I've been around for so long.
That's right.
And something I learned years ago.
Right.
I could say centuries, but I'm not going to, but I just did.
Back in the 1900s.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, it was the 1800s. I appreciate. Is that we can't read each other's minds.
That's right.
And that's what gets us in trouble. And even though I'm sure that the keynote speaker, he processed this a lot more than what I just said, but that's actually part of it. So
That's
you're right. How do we? And Dave, I'm going to put this in something that just happened to me. I met with a prospect, and she was talking about all kinds of conflict that she's thinking of bringing me in to work with her board of directors. And I got off the phone and I figured out a really good plan for 4 meetings. And then it dawned on me. That's when Joyce, the now Joyce, said, those are your ideas. Those are your penguins. Yeah. So I got back and I had I had to be really careful how I position this. And I sent her an email and I said, how about if we get on the phone and I want to make sure I heard you and included your ideas and not just mine. And boom, she said, and I thought for sure, thinking the imposter syndrome, she's not going to like this idea, is she said, what a great idea. Let's do that. Yeah. So is that part of what you do when you, speak about this topic?
It is absolutely now. So now I'm old Dave, opposite of young Dave. Mm-hmm. And I spend a lot more time trying to, in the beginning, align on the penguin. How do I, before I do any work, before I solve any problems, before I even start a charter or a statement of work or a scoping session, how do I get the person across the table from me to tell me what they want? Because until I know what they want, it doesn't matter what I want. I'll have a different penguin in mind. And so there's a couple of tools I can share with you on how I've been doing that the last few years.
And I want to hear that. But first, first, we're going to take a 40, let's see, how long is it? A 24-second break. Okay. But right. I promise we're going to come right back and we're going to find out these two tools, say that 3 times, that Dave is going to share with us. Don't go anywhere. Are you ready to stop feeling invisible and start feeling confident using your voice? Let's set up a complimentary Jam with Joyce call to improve your relationships and finally get that inner peace. If this is something that you want, send me an email, joyce@joyceweiss.com, and I'll send you my calendar. Well, welcome back to Kick Conflict to the Curb. I'm your host, Joyce Weiss, and we're having a truly engaging conversation with Dave Kippen, who is now going to tell us 2 tools that he promised to talk about before the break. Your turn.
Oh, that's funny. 2 tools. Yeah, I won't say that 3 times fast.
No, don't.
Well, the first thing I want to share is this. It's a concept. It's an idea called Nemawashi. Nemawashi, Nemawashi. And you can Google this. This is not a Dave term. If anybody's experienced in the lean manufacturing world, you know, we love our Japanese terms, and this is a Japanese term, and it roughly translates to preparing roots for transplanting. But what it really means, and the way I've learned to use it over the last several years, is how do I have those informal discussions, you know, with key stakeholders if I'm at work, or loved ones if I'm at home? How do I have informal discussions with them to learn about what they need before I pitch my bright idea, before I give any advice, before I share what I would do? This idea of Nemawashi is really about seeking first to understand. I'm sure we've all heard that term.
Sure.
But this is, you know, it's seeking first to understand superpower. It's really believing that I'm not going to do any work. I'm not going to engage in any kind of next steps until I know what they want and they've told me they want my help.
Dave, here we go again with the penguin. I mean, this penguin exercise. I'm so
Won't
glad
go
you
away.
brought it up. I'm kind of stuck there right now. I mean, it's you've got your penguins. You want to hear
Yeah.
theirs about theirs. And when I attained actually, it was the first day when I went to Oakland University in Rochester Hills, when I attained my master's in guidance and counseling, the professor said, everybody write this down. Is help helpful? And I said, duh, this is really going to be a great
Right.
3 years.
Yeah.
And wow. First of all, we've got, see what I'm talking about? He's laughing. I'm being serious, and this guy is laughing on my show. So thank you for doing that, by the way.
I love it.
This every time, what you're saying right now is, number one, you ended up with that. Do they want my help?
Right.
So tell us a little more about that, and one more time, because I started. Please spell Nemawashi one more time.
Nemawashi, Nemawashi. I'm probably not pronouncing it exactly right. Maybe it's Nemawashi, but
you
can go out there and Google it. Yep. Yeah, there's lots of information on it. So let me give you an example of how I used this fairly recently. We were asked to support one of our larger production facilities by the C-suite. So the executive said, hey, continuous improvement group, we've got this facility that needs your help. Go fix them. Old Dave would have said, oh, I got permission from the guys and gals in the glass office. I know exactly what they need, and I'm going to go tell them, here's what we're going to do, right? That's old Dave. And that's where I was in lots of conflict early on. Instead, old, wiser Dave, I like to think, practiced this idea of Nemawashi. So for 3 weeks, we traveled to the plant, which was outside of Cincinnati, and did nothing but informal discussions with the site leadership team. So day one, I went and I sat with the plant manager there with no agenda, no scoping document. We hadn't even said anything about what we might do or what we think we should do. And I just said, Charles, you know, what's eating your lunch? You know, what's the worst part of your day? You know, what keeps you up at night? And just asking those probing questions. And even then, never suggesting any solution. We did ask, hey, Charles, who else should we go talk to? You know, who else is maybe feeling some pain here at the plant? Because the C-suite is correct. You know, they feel stress and anxiety when they're not performing the way they want to perform. So we said, hey, who do we go talk to next? Oh, go talk to Dane, the customer service director. All right, set up an hour with Dane and do the same thing. Just sit down side by side and just listen. And so we did that for 3 weeks, Joyce. Wow. We talked to, I think, 22 different people at all levels in the organization, compiled our notes. And those were one-on-one Nemawashi. And then at the end of that 3 weeks, we got everybody together and said, here's what we heard from you guys. Here were the common themes. Here were some things that were different. And we asked the question, if we could help you with these top 3 things that were themes, would you like that? And they all said, yes, please. And there you
Wow.
go, right? That's automatic buy-in. There is no conflict because they told us what they
No.
wanted. They asked us for our help, and here we go.
And you know, first of all, yay. This was brilliant. And what I'm guessing is the people who, when you said these are the top things that we heard, um, they maybe think, God, that's brilliant. How did they know? Not even realize it was those were their words.
They're exactly.
They don't brilliant. Now I'm going to be a devil's advocate. Are you ready?
Love it. Yes.
Okay. So let's say, because you know this works, and we know now, listeners and viewers, that it works, as you heard. What would happen if you went to someone who said, Dave, we need to have something right away. We don't want you to spend 3 weeks
Yeah.
interviewing our people.
Yeah.
How, I mean, besides saying, no, we can't work with you, that's an
Yeah.
easy one. How would you explain it to them, even though we need it now? We need it. We
Yeah.
need a draft by next week, and we want the program planned in 2 months.
Sure. And there are times where you have to take action immediately if there are safety concerns or
Okay.
health concerns. And the discussion is a little different with the leadership team. It's, hey, do you think we need to do something right now? And are you okay if we suggest steps 1, 2, and 3?
Mhm.
And typically, if you're in a crisis situation, you get a little less pushback
Okay.
than you do otherwise. So I still think you have those discussions. You just have to compress the timeline and maybe be a little more direct. Yeah, you make a good point. We were fortunate in this case where we had a little time ahead of putting any actions in place where we could do that. But I think you'd be surprised. Those firefighting modes or crisis
Mhm.
times, a lot of times, I don't want to say they're made up, but
You can
sometimes we
say
put
it.
yeah, I
You can
think
say it.
sometimes we
Yeah.
we like to operate in a little bit of stress and chaos, and so we put
Mhm.
undue pressure on ourselves. You know, you think of some of the great thinkers before us: go slow to go fast,
Mhm.
smooth and steady is fast. Those types of things. And there's an argument to be made that even if you do spend a little time doing Nemawashi or some other planning ahead of something critical, you're going to save time and move quicker in the long run anyway. Not everybody sees that and believes in that, but it's definitely something that I coach in those
Well,
situations.
I see and believe in it, and it's the idea that you, as their coach, as their consultant, have to, in a way, without saying, "Hey, you may not even know the trouble. You think that
Right,
it's X, Y, Z,
right.
but it's really something that we don't even know at this point."
That's right.
You know how you say that is an important thing, because we don't want to, turn off the person listening, especially if there's a big ego. I'm all about risk, though. I think it's important that we need to take that risk. Because, Dave, what would be the worst thing that a CEO would say to you? I'm going to, then we'll move on from this, because I love you're so easy to push because you're ready
uh,
for it.
yeah, yeah,
If the CEO would be taken back and say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. We're going to
yeah.
be doing XYZ. Well, how would you end that conversation? Or would you still open the door gently?
It's situational, and the "it depends" comment comes into play, and I hate it. But honestly, Joyce, I've worked for some bosses and teams that respectfully decline to do work with people that want to operate that way. And
Okay.
of course, that's not an option all the time.
Mm-mm. No.
But I know from experience, and you know from experience, that if you don't set the team up for success, it's just not going to end well. And
Yep.
so, even in my role today, if my plant teams and my plant managers and the regionals aren't asking for my help, I
Mm-hmm.
don't go do work. It used to be I would set the schedule and say, hey, my plant in Spokane, I'm going to be there in 2 months. Get ready. Uh,
Yeah.
we've flipped the script over the last few years, and now unless they're asking for help, we just don't go do work with them. And so that's harsh, and that's a different way of thinking. And of course, it's not always possible. But I think having that discussion or starting that line of thinking, I mean, it's different thinking, I'm not going to go work with somebody uh, who's not thinking this way. It's
Hmm.
different. And I encourage people to give that some thought.
Oh, and so do I. I mean, if I didn't agree with you, I push back on you for real, not just these
Yeah.
hypothetical ideas.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to walk away.
Yeah.
You can't especially if you're working for a company and you
Yeah.
give your ideas to the top brass, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah. Yeah.
you've got to figure out how can you. I have something called be direct with respect. How
Yeah.
can you be direct and tell them in a way, and a respectful way? And it's very hard for them unless they're a narcissist and a bully, and we could talk about that because
Right.
different another time because
Right.
it's so
And it's you just got me thinking. It starts with a pretty simple and clear expectation. Here are the things that I need to have happen in order to continue the work.
mhm,
And it's not emotional at that point. Excuse me. It's just a matter of fact. It's direct and with
yes,
respect. I don't know if you've ever had Dan Vermeesh on. He's a local around Michigan.
no,
A company he used to work for, and I love this story. They created what they called a perfect customer calculator. When new quotes would come in, or when new customers would come in with a quote for a product,
mhm,
uh, they ran they ran the customer through this perfect customer calculator, and they would turn new business away if the customer didn't meet certain requirements. And it's things that typically in manufacturing you would never turn a customer away for. But if a customer didn't meet some of these kind of even the soft skill requirements, even as a customer, being willing to iterate, being willing to work on the right time frames for samples and things like that, they had a set of questions that would filter out customers they thought didn't fit with their values and how they wanted to operate, and they would respectfully say thank you but no, and they would give them the name of their competitor. Take your business to XYZ, we think they would help you.
now
It's that thinking is it's so revolutionary. It's mind boggling to think about it, but it is happening. People are doing that.
it's revolutionary. And in the intro, when I was talking about you before, right when we started, is that I said that Dave has a sense of humor and a different perspective on life. Even though that may have not been your idea at first, you're now sharing it on my
Yeah.
show with these leaders.
Yeah.
So I thank you for that. I've got two more questions.
Okay.
And usually this show is a lot shorter, but I just can't stop myself because you just are flowing with wisdom. See, one of the world's best
Oh
experts.
boy.
Uh, just say thank you, Joyce, please.
Thank you, Joyce. I appreciate
Okay.
it.
So, in the intro, I said that your goal is to end workplace suffering.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
briefly,
Yeah.
how do you train leaders in this area?
Yeah, I hate that so many of my friends and so many of my family hate their job. When you talk to people, out and about at parties and at home, it's it's bleak. And if you look at the statistics on job satisfaction, it is not getting better. Like
Mhm.
the last one I saw, something like 55% of folks are actively tuned out of their job. It's mind-boggling. Yeah. And so, how can I help that? How can I help leaders work through that? It's really about giving that. I'm going to try to stay out of the buzzwords, but a sense of ownership back
Mhm.
to the colleagues doing the work. So, for me, as a continuous improvement practitioner, it's allowing space for the people doing the work to improve their own work. So again, old Dave knew the answers, and I could tell them how to improve their work. Didn't work very well. Old Dave now knows how to set up time and meetings and tools that allow the colleagues doing the work to do it themselves. And so I think that's part of it for me. And then, of course, coaching leaders to do the same, coaching leaders to sit in the back of the conference room and not at the head of the table. There are times you have to, of course.
Sure.
But if you want to develop your team, if you want them to hate their job less, you have to let them do it themselves. You have to give them time and space and some resources to do it. Can't do it for them.
And what you did is, if we go really deep, deep, deep with what you just said, you're allowing people to feel safe so they can voice their opinions. And
Yeah.
that's really how I see what you're saying. And I hear my clients tell me I don't feel heard and silent. So why do you
Mm-hmm.
think that's my theme when I talk to leaders?
Yeah.
It's not
It's so
my
true.
idea. It's what people are telling you. So Dave, I'm
Yeah.
applauding you
Yeah.
for that. Yes, it's so true. And why don't did you want to say one more thing about that? I feel like there's something else
Oh, no, I again, we could go for another 2 hours on this probably.
okay.
I
No.
get a little twitchy when I hear those ooey gooey words, make space and safe and empathy. But I think you're right. It's exactly what it is. And so let's call it what it is,
Yes.
and not run away from it.
No. And realize that like you said, slow but steady wins the race. Let them
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
how to do it on their own, even though you can come in there, hey, this is what you do, project 1, 2, 3. So, I hope I still have it. I had to. Well, if you were to meet with me, I had a beer mug that I was going to send to
Oh,
you,
nice.
but it's gone. And for a cup of coffee, glass of wine, or mug of beer, what
Yeah.
question would you ask Joyce Weiss? I'm ready.
Well, I'd ask you 50 questions for sure, but I would probably start with, how are you? What's new in your world? What's
Oh,
exciting for you right now, Joyce? What are you amped up about?
folks, that's all it takes for us to ask that simple question. How are you? And I'm going to tell you how I am briefly, because I'll do the Reader's Digest. I am beyond excited about this new portion of my career.
Oh, great.
Doing this interview, and my show is about a year old, and I see the progress of me as a host, and
Yeah.
because I watch TV, and I listen to the radio, and I tune into some really good and really poor hosts, and I've
Yeah.
learned how to feel real comfortable in this. I didn't know that I enjoyed interviewing people on a camera,
Right.
in my perfect little office here that was designed during COVID. Uh, so the show, my facilitation and coaching projects, they're going deeper. For whatever reason,
Hmm.
this time of the year, I'm always getting my referrals. The old way of doing business was you contact people who love you and know you and hired you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I did that for years, and the slow but steady wins the race.
Yeah.
They're calling. I'm excited about that, and I'm going to stop at that. There's just
That's wonderful.
so much.
I'm so
And
happy for you. That's
well,
great.
thank you. And I know you don't know this, but part of what I love doing, being a host for the show, is I do research. If my guest wrote a book, I read the book. I went on your website, davekippenart.com,
Yes.
and found out, didn't
Yes.
know that you're a certified therapeutic art life coach. So, I mean, this is the time that I'm going to ask you, like, to how people can reach you and all that, which I am
Yeah.
going to do. Um, tell us about that service that you offer,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. So I mentioned, I think at the top, I originally went to school for graphic design. Never ended up being a graphic designer, but a lot of the fine art and art skills I had to learn in college stuck with me over the years. So you can see behind me, my office is also my art studio.
Mhm.
So I've kept up on the creative side. When I lived in Grand Haven here on the west side of Michigan, I was blessed to be able to volunteer my time teaching a community center for special needs folks art. And so I would go in once a month and just do a simple acrylic painting class. Uh, and I thought at the time, I think this is really cool. And I heard feedback from several of the attendees that, this hour was the only hour in their week that they didn't feel stressed out about life. And I didn't think that was going to choke me up today.
Mhm.
And so I thought, wow, there's some power in this. And so Kismet, happenstance, I saw a course come through, or maybe a social media ad for, art therapy. And I thought, this is kind of what I'm doing. Let me learn maybe some official, official art therapy tools and practices. So I actually went through two different art therapy or art life coaching classes just to learn maybe a little more textbook things I could do as
Mhm.
I was volunteering my time teaching that. So it was great. I've loved every minute of that.
I knew I had to ask you that because this is what if we really dissect most of you watching, I don't mean your brain, but dissect your career. Many times it's so connected. Sometimes it's not, but many times. And look at Dave's career: graphic artist, creative. He now has a website called davekippenart.com where you can find about his art and about him being the certified therapeutic life coach. Um, it's no surprise that it's. I
Yeah.
can't wait to see. You think you're excited about where I'm at. I can't wait to see where this takes you.
Yeah.
So, Dave, um, I've got your LinkedIn.
Yeah. So for all the business stuff, if you want to learn more about how I think about continuous improvement or coaching or leadership, that's the LinkedIn page. So
And say it
people
out loud
can,
just in case people are not watching but just listening.
yeah, I think you could just search Dave Kippen on LinkedIn and it'll take you to me. If you want to learn more about the art stuff, Dave Kippen Art on Instagram or Facebook should get you my way, or davekippenart.com from the website.
Great. Okay, so I lied. I have one more question. I already have the topics. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to throw everything away that we had in this conversation. I'm not even going to ask your permission. I don't care what you have to say. I know the topic for the next time. But
Okay.
but I'm not going to say it. I'm going to keep it a
Ah,
surprise. But of course, I'm going to first consult with you. I will listen. Will you come back next year, please?
yes, of course, Joyce. I'll talk to you any chance I get. Any chance I
Oh,
get.
and I will listen to you, even though we did have a conversation. Well, you're going to see lots of these clips on social media. So I want to thank you so much for joining me and kick conflict to the curb. And I look forward to next year when I'm going to invite you back. So
Yes,
thanks
absolutely.
from my heart.
I appreciate it. I always love talking to you, Joyce. Thank you.
Thanks. So I do hope that you enjoy yourself learning and listening from Dave Kippen. You could see he's creative. You could see he's very approachable. So reach out to him on LinkedIn, whether it's professionally or even his coaching, his therapeutic art coaching. He's there. He's so approachable. And if you want to discuss how I could work with you as your coach or as facilitator for your organization, so you can stop feeling unheard and uncomfortable starting tough conversations and gain the confidence to use your voice, or if you want to stop dreading going to work and reducing all the drama and enjoy going to the office, please send me an email at joyce@joyceweiss.com, where we can set up a complimentary jam with Joyce session to find out if I would be the right person for you. And if you want to connect, please do. If we're not connected, linkedin.com/in/Joyce Weiss, and YouTube. I have over 500 clips and videos on dealing with conflict. So I want to thank all of you. I appreciate my viewers. You have no idea how it warms my heart when you send me questions or even give me questions to ask future guests. Thank you for making this so enjoyable for me, and I hope it was for you too. And I am going to end this show like I do all my articles, my blogs. You get what you tolerate. Is it going to be calm or chaos? Again, thank you so much for watching. And remember, you get what you tolerate.